Hey folks, I'm going to be doing a little rules overview of Twilight Inscription this morning, or at least I'm recording it this morning. I'm not sure when it's going to be out. Um, I've did my I've done my best to try to get this to focus properly. I think it's just the material these boards are made out of. It's very hard, even looking at the bottom section here. This is it's almost blurry in person. It's got like a kind of a holographic look to it, so that's probably why it's not capturing very well on camera. But anyways, in Twilight Inscription, you are essentially it's basically roll and write version of Twilight Imperium. It's supposed to be played in a shorter time span, which I think it will be. You could get this done in a sitting, not have to leave it set up over multiple days or weeks, depending on how often your group gets together. Um, a lot of it is simultaneous action, and one of the points the rulebook makes to or tries to make repeatedly is that you should not be looking at your opponent's boards. So there are four of these boards, and you're going to have these spread out in front of you, um, laid out in a grid essentially, and you're going to be, you're going to be marking on them throughout the game. You are not supposed to be looking at your opponents to see what they are doing. Um, I don't think this will be too huge of an issue initially, because while these boards are big, they are also if they're across the table from it's going to be difficult to kind of see what somebody is marking. You're going to have a general idea of what area they're marking. Um, but I don't think it's going to be that big of a deal if somebody's caught looking. I just don't just pay attention to your own board. You can further complicate that by these boards are double sided. They have an A side and a B side. This is the B side. All the B sides are exactly the same for every player. There are 8 sets of these 4 cards, and the A sides are all asymmetric, so they're all different. So if you play with the A sides, that even further complicates somebody trying to cheat by looking at what somebody else is doing. That being said, the game is fairly simple rules wise. It's just there's a lot going on. So you're basically going to be rolling dice. You're going to be drawing a card. We'll take a look here at one of the cards. So you're going to be drawing a objective. I think these are called objective cards. No, these are event cards. You're going to be drawing an event card. You're going to follow. There's 3 different types of event cards. There's a strategy. There is a production, and then there is a council. There's also a warfare one. So I think there's 4 actually. Let me just double check that real quick. Yes. There are the strategy, there's the war, the production, and the council event cards. This is a strategy. Its title's up here. You're going to follow what it says to do. These are the resources that it comes with. So the first thing you do for a strategy is you choose your active sheet. So you're going to look at your 4 sheets here, and I'll go over these in a few minutes. You're going to choose one to be your active sheet for this round, and this round only. Which means that this sheet is the sheet you choose is going to be the only sheet that you take actions on. You will be able to spend assets from other sheets, but only if you are spending them to make a mark on your current sheet. After you choose your active sheet, you are then going to spend the resources that are on the card. So this card gives you these 2 resources. You will spend those on your active sheet. Then the active player, the speaker, is going to take all 6 of these dice, which are nice, heavy, and huge, and they're going to roll those dice. Then you are going to spend the resources that are rolled on said dice. Now, there are 3 black dice, and then there are 1 of each focus dice, color of each focus die. Every player will be able to spend the resources on the black die. However, you can only spend resources on the focus die if you have unlocked that ability on your active sheet. So each sheet has the ability to unlock the use of one of these dice, and then when you do that, you can only use that color dice on that particular sheet. It's not like if you unlock the pink die, you will unlock it for all your sheets. It's only for the sheet that it's unlocked on, and this is essentially simulating the. Actually, no, I'm thinking of Eclipse with the advanced technologies. Or the advanced mining. That's Eclipse. That's not this. That's what it reminds me of, though. It basically gives you additional actions you can spend, not actions, but resources. So after you do that, after everybody, all this happens simultaneously. Everybody spends resources at the same time. We roll the dice, then everybody spends those resources, and then we basically just go to the next the next event card. Like I said, it's pretty straightforward. I'm just double checking there isn't some kind of cleanup at the end. But there is not. Yeah, you just go to event. Some of the events are a war. There are war events which will essentially initiate battles between your neighbors. So when you have a battle, you're going to have 1 battle against your neighbor to your right and 1 battle against the neighbor to your left. So you're never going to battle somebody who sits 2 seats away from you. That type of stuff. There are production events which will allow you to produce trade goods. And then you can spend these for various things. Basically, at the end of the game, it looks like 2 trade goods equals 1 victory point. But you can also spend trade goods. There are things that allow you to spend trade goods. Let me double check this. As other resources. Let me look. Each trade good a player spends provides a resource of the player's choice to spend on the active sheet. So you can accumulate these, and then you can mark them off to indicate you're spending them as any other resource for your current sheet. Then there is the council phase, which where we will reveal an agenda. So let's, I'll just grab one of these agendas here. And we'll reveal one of these cards. And it doesn't look like an agenda. I mean, it does. Trade fleet subsidization. Are they all? I thought there would be more text on them, but I guess not. Yep, they're not. So these are the agenda cards, and basically you're going to be voting on this. You're going to be spending your votes. Sorry, I'm just looking to make sure. Yeah, not much text there. You would just read trade fleet subsidization. I believe you would read both of these. So the player who casts the most pass votes would choose a commodity type. Each player claims 1 trade good for each claimed commodity of that type in their industry grid. Or if it fails, the player who casts the most fail votes chooses a commodity type on navigation, which is that's the name of a sheet on your navigation sheet. Each player claims 1 system that contains that commodity, even if unexplored, and explores from it to an adjacent system. So it's not necessarily good or bad. It's just, it changes the game a bit. But you're going to vote similarly to how you would kind of vote in Twilight Imperium. You're going to be spending your votes, which are kept track of here. And how many votes you want towards pass or fail, you're going to mark it in your box here. Whether you want to do pass or fail, and then the number of votes you're going to be submitting, and then the tallies are done over on another board here. Here's the Mechatol Rex board. So this is the This is the board to indicate who gets to Mechatol Rex first, how quickly they get there. First person there is get 77 victory points and 4 immediate votes, that they can spend. When a council phase comes around, then 5, then 3, then 2, you will tally votes here for pass and fail when you get to that, and then you can do your final scores over here. This is double-sided. On this side is if you're going to play with less than 3 players, you can play a solo game, or you can play with 2 players and an AI. The solo game also plays with the AI, and this stuff keeps track of that solo player. I'm going to be playing a solo game here shortly to go through that. But let's take a look at these boards. So the first one we should probably look at is navigation. Yep, navigation, expansion, then industry. All right, navigation. So like I said, you're going to be revealing the card, and then you're going to be spending resources that are on the card. So if we look at the navigation board here, you'll see in the top left there, if we roll either of the 2 top symbols, the pink or the green, not on the pink or green, but actually on the black die, or if they show up on the card, you can explore an adjacent system. So exploring an adjacent system means you're going to draw a line from one system to the next system with your pen, your dry erase marker. Every player starts with a home system and some already explored systems. So if I wanted to spend one of those 2 to explore an adjacent system, I could explore from here to here, or I could explore from here to here, or here to here, or here to here, by just drawing in my line. Alternatively, if one of the other symbols comes up, that square symbol, which is the, let me look at those terms because they are labeled. The blue one is influence, the pink one is material, and the green one is research. So the cube looking one, 3D cube, is the influence. The material looks, I guess, maybe octagonal a little bit, and then the triangle is research. So if I want to spend an influence, I can explore a system, and by exploring a system means if I have a system that's connected that I've explored to, I can circle it. Now, as you can notice, I'm not sure if you can tell that well, but there are 2 different ways that systems are indicated on the board here. Some of them have dashed lines, which is like this one. It's dashed around the outside. Let me see if I can bring that up a little more. Yeah, here you go. You can see that it's kind of dashed line, and then there are other ones with little dots around them. So that's a dotted one. That's a dotted one. And that's a dashed one. If you circle a dashed system, it will essentially, that resource or that material, whatever it is giving you, you can save to use later, which usually means that you will just leave it circled there until you spend it. If it's a dotted line, you are going, that's something that gives you an immediate effect, and almost all the time that it gives you that immediate effect, you will mark it on one of your other boards somewhere. So for instance, if I were to circle this one with this commodity, I would go to my industry board and underline or mark off one of those icons on that track, essentially. The Saturn, the planet looking symbol, allows you to then spend that to explore a planet on your exploration board, or your, I think it's expansion board, that's what it is, expansion board. Anytime you see the 2 stars, those are just victory points. These are wormholes, so in order to use a wormhole, you first have to unlock your gravity drive, which is down here, and you can unlock either of these 2 technologies by either spending the 3 resources to the right, which are the research, is that what they're called? Now I can't even remember what they were called. Research. The research symbols. or you can spend this special technology, and you can get one of these two special technologies either out here on this board or on other boards that you can then spend for here. So in order to actually use a wormhole, which basically allows you, when you explore into the wormhole and then out of one of the other wormholes, you have to have your gravity drive researched. So either by spending this special technology or by using these three symbols. It's kind of hard. It still is blurry. I'm not sure why it's so blurry. Or the integrated economy, which has the keyword per active. That means that you can only take this once per round. So you can't activate this multiple times, just once per active per sheet, per time you make the sheet active. And it allows you to claim up to 2 explored small systems. So the small systems are the smaller circles versus the larger circles. The icons down here indicate, like, if I had unlocked my pink, where is it? I don't see it there. But there was always one of each on each board. Let me go back here and look real quick. It might not be on this sheet, it might be on other sheets, and then I can spend it from the other sheets to unlock it on this sheet. That's what it is. So if I were to unlock the pink, then I'd be able to use whatever the pink die rolled, spend it up here. And then there's just a scoring for the end of the game. So that's the navigation sheet. So now let's go to the expansion sheet. So on the expansion sheet, you have different planets here. And in order to first get to a planet, you're going to have to spend one of the planet symbols that was on the navigation sheet to unlock a planet. So you first have to get there and explore the planet. Then you can spend that planet to unlock one of these 6 planets. And you'll just mark out. You'll just take and mark out the planet on the other board, and then you'll mark. Indicate which one you're marking out here. You can then spend your resource symbols that you get from the card or from the dice on planets that you have opened up. And when you complete a column or a row, you will get the benefit, whatever is at the top of the column or to the right of the row. Again, the same dots and dashed outlines apply. If it's a dotted, you get it immediately and you're going to mark it on another board somewhere. And if it's a dashed, it's something you can use later. Alternatively, you can build space docks, and you can either spend 1 planet. You can have 3 space docks. You can spend 1 planet or 5 of the materials for one of them. And if you do that, you will get to be able to get the ability to unlock the green die for any. When you spend it, it's a dashed, so you would just circle it, and then when you spend it, you're going to cross it out and then mark an underline on the green box on any of the other sheets, or this sheet if you wanted to spend it on this sheet. The second space dock can be spent a planet. Instead of spending it to open up one of these, you could spend it for a space dock or for research, for influence. And that will give you the pink die. And then the third one is you can spend a planet or 3 research to unlock the blue die. You don't have to do these in order. You can do them in any order that you want. You also keep track of your population. So when you would get a population symbol, you would just mark or circle the next one here. And they're going to give you victory points at the end of the game. There are the slots for keeping track if you've unlocked which die on this board. Then there's two technologies that you can research for this board and unlock. One is self-assembly routines. This says per active, so once per round you can cross out one unclaimed asset on the unlocked planet to cross out 2 resource icons there. Cross out one unclaimed asset on an unlocked planet to cross out 2 resource icons there. Unclaimed asset. Oh, these are the assets. So I could cross off one to use it. So that would be one that I've already claimed. Or no, an unclaimed. So I cross it off as though I'm not going to get it. But instead I can cross off 2 other icons here. And the other one is the neural motivator, and that says per active. So that's once per round. On each unlocked planet, cross out one material or one influence in a row or column that has a population asset. So, for instance, I could cross out any of the icons in this middle row because there's a population asset there. Or any in this row because there's a population asset up there. And then those are unlocked by spending 3 of the research or the special technology icons, which there's 1 here. So if you get this row, you can circle this and you can spend this to immediately unlock this. Or you can spend this for one of the other sheets. There are 3 trackers up here. There's a little bit of glare. You can't see them, but they are for the material, the influence, and the research. Slide that down a little bit. There you go. Material, influence, and research. These basically have no in-game effect other than for you to keep track of how many of each you've spent on your current round. So just, let's say you have 3 resources on a card, and then you can spend 4 of the resources from the dice because you've unlocked one of the other die. You can mark off, okay, I've spent 2 of the pink icons already, so I know that I can't, I don't have, those are out and whatnot. Otherwise, they're not really used in the game. The tracks, I mean. The next one is the industry board. And on the industry board, this is where you're going to keep track of sort of your commodities and your trade goods and your votes. So you're going to keep track of your votes over here whenever you unlock a check mark. On another board, you will actually, whenever you unlock a check mark on another board, you're going to mark it over here, down here on this track. And then when we get to the votes, you're going to see how many +1s you have. That's how many you're going to add to your vote total here. And these are going to be the votes that you can actually spend. Additionally, if you unlock these other commodities, there's 3 different types of commodities. You have circles, squares, and triangles. You will mark them off on this grid down here. When you get to either 2 of these grids, or either of these grids, or these rows, I guess I should say, when you reach if you mark, all the ones off to the left of the victory point marker, you'll automatically claim it and get those victory points. And similarly, if you mark everything in a row, you will get additional commodities over here that you can then spend, or 2 commodities at the end of the game equals 1 victory point. You will also write in your this is where you indicate whether you want to pass or fail a vote, and then how many you're going to spend. Additionally, you can... Did we look at that on the other board? There's not one on the other board. You're just spending those resources. So in industry, if you get the material icon, you can scrap an unmarked space adjacent to any marked space. So let's talk about scrapping versus claiming. So when you scrap something, you're going to draw an X through it. The board starts with 1 scrapped space. You do not claim. If you scrap something, you do not get that resource or that commodity or whatever it is, that asset. You can scrap anything as long as it's adjacent to something that's either scrapped or claimed already. So then we go to the next one. We go influence or research. It allows you to claim an unmarked space adjacent to a scrap space. So by claiming it is where you're going to circle it, and you're going to get that asset or that commodity immediately. But you can only claim adjacent to a scrap space. So I can scrap adjacent to any marked space, but I can only claim adjacent to a scrap space. So you're going to be forced to make decisions on where to strategically scrap things so that you can open up more things that you can claim. Additionally, there are these ones here off to the side that are not attached, or there's some that are attached down here that they don't have a commodity in them. They only have the scrap symbol in them, the X. And they have a tag beside them with a special technology. That means that you can only scrap that if you spend that technology. So if I spend that special technology, the special yellow technology or the special green technology, then I can scrap there. And then I have these three open that I can actually claim to get additional resources. And then you have these two special technologies up here. So if you spend the blue one, you could either open up this. You can actually scrap here if you wanted to, or you can spend it as 4 materials, which is the pink ones, and spend and scrap 4 unmarked spaces that are next to any marked space. And same with the yellow. It allows you to spend 3 influence as per that special resource. There are obviously a spot up here to keep track of which dice you've unlocked for this sheet. And then you have your 2 technologies that you can unlock. One is AI development algorithm. And it says while active, you can claim spaces adjacent to at least 3 scrap spaces for free. So if you have 3, like if this one, and this one is scrapped, you can claim this one for free. And then the other one is psychoarchaeology, and that says per active, so once per round, choose any space that contains a council vote and either scrap it or claim it. So that would be this one, this one, this one, this one, this one, or this one. And you can either scrap it or claim it if you get that technology. And that would allow you to put another underline over here on this row. And then when we get to a council vote event, then you would count how many +1s you have here. You would circle that many votes up here, and that's how many votes you would have to spend. When you spend a vote to do a council phase, you're going to cross it off and mark it to indicate that you can't spend it again. But you're going to continue to get more votes per, these never get crossed off. This is just your vote production, essentially. And then a place to score for the end of the game. And then lastly, we have the warfare board. And on the warfare board, you're going to be spending the resources, the icons that you're rolling and that come off the card, to build various different things. So the first thing you can build is an infantry, and it is just a single dot, and that it costs 1 of any resource. And when you build that, what you do is you're going to come down here to your board, and you're going to see on the right side of your board you have a grid here. And the right side of this grid, this column here, is the forces that you're going to send to attack the player to your right, or defend against them, however you want to look at it. And the ones on the left are the forces you're going to send to defend or attack the player on your left. You notice they are separated. So when you build an infantry, you would just come out here and you would just put a dot in one of these sections in the first section. So the first section is only up to this line. Then the second war that would happen would be just between these two. So you have to continually build more units. You can't use these units to fight the second war that happens, or the third war, or the fourth war. When you build something, it does have some placement restrictions. So it either has to be placed adjacent to the deployment line, which is at the bottom of the board to start with. After we have the first war, you will take your marker and you'll draw complete this line across here, and that will be your next deployment line. So when you place something, it has to either be adjacent to that deployment line or adjacent to another unit. So if I were to deploy an infantry, I would have to put it along this bottom row of circles. Additionally, you cannot cover up an anomaly. These are the red hexed circles, or the red hexes around the nodes, I think is what these are called. The red hexes around that node cannot be covered up. However, you can cover up an asset or an anomaly. Or no, these are the anomalies. I think these are just called assets. And if you do so, then you will claim that. And most of them are victory points, but there is population on a couple of them. And you will just circle it. So you'll see the infantry is just a single dot. A planetary defense system, PDS. Actually, you can build 4 of them in total. The 3 of them require spending 2 influence, at which point you have to draw this symbol, this 3 wide with 1 tall on your grid over here, and make it fit on either section. You can span across sections, and it will whatever's on this section that's filled in is going to count to your left, and whatever's over on this side is going to count to your right when you're calculating combat power. But the 4th PDS has to be built with that special technology. Then you can build cruisers. You can build 4 cruisers. Again, special technology for the 4th one, or 3 materials for the other ones. And it is just a straight line. Then you can build a dreadnought. Can you? Maybe you can't. Let me see. I know the War Suns are locked. Building units. Yeah, the Dreadnoughts and the War Suns are locked. Yeah, of course they are. That's because they have this symbol here to the left of their name. So in order to build a Dreadnought, to be able to start building Dreadnoughts, you have to spend this special technology to mark it off, and then you can start building them. And they are this sideways T, essentially. And you can build 4 of them. 1 requires that special technology. The other 3 are 2 materials and 1 research. And then the War Sun is similar. It is this symbol down here, which is an 8 with 2 lines coming off the sides of it, I guess is the best way to describe it. And you can build 2 of them, and they require these resources to get. When you complete one, you will circle the victory points, and that's how many victory points you're going to get for them at the end of the game. When you have a battle, when we have a war event, you will compare, at a time, you're going to compare your right side to your player to your right's left side. I guess is, whatever's adjacent, you're going to compare those numbers. Whoever has the higher number is going to win, and they're going to circle the top number, and you're going to put in your score, your power in the middle here. Whoever loses will circle the bottom number. If you tie, then you just cross off both resources, and neither player gets them. And you basically count in how many dots on the right side you have filled in versus how many dots your opponent has filled in, and you compare those numbers. So you can have a cruiser that is let's say I built a cruiser that's here, here, and here. I've got my line drawn in there like that, right? So my power for my left is 1, 2, and my power for my right now is 1. And I've connected with this this asset, so I will draw a circle around that asset to indicate that I have it, and I can spend it. Or, well, it's a victory point, so it just counts as a victory point for the end of the game for me. And these markers are tough to get on there. I'm supposed to let that dry, I guess. That came off there. Good as new. So that's the warfare. There are 2 technologies that you can unlock here: fleet logistics. During each war, you add 3 strength if there are at least 2 non-infantry units deployed entirely within the war section. So that would be on the left half or the right half if you have at least 2 non-infantry units. So if you 2 PDSs or 2 cruisers, fully in the section, or I guess dreadnoughts and war sons, you get 3 additional strength. And then transit diodes, which is per active, so it's each time this is an active sheet. You can deploy 2 infantry. Each infantry must be adjacent to another unit and can be deployed below the deployment line. So then maybe I read that wrong then. If they can be deployed to below the deployment line. Well, let's look here. It says strength does not carry forward from section to section. So then I'm not sure why you would want to deploy an infantry below a deployment line. Oh, unless you're like wanting to get I guess you could deploy it here to get this victory point marker, or deploy it here to get this victory point marker, or here. Well, you can't deploy it below there because, well, if it's yeah, I'm not sure. I guess you could, yeah. So this deployment line, I'm just trying to think about this through my head. Like the first war, it has to be adjacent to the deployment line or adjacent to another unit. But it could go higher, I guess. So I guess if I keep building, I could fill this section up before the first war and just keep going above. But when we go to after the first war, only stuff after the second deployment line will actually count, I believe. Strength does not carry forward from section to section. Each player counts the number of marked nodes in the left section immediately below the new deployment line. Oh, okay. So yeah, you could build upwards. And then the first thing you do when you do a war is you're going to draw that line. And then you just count the stuff that's in this section. But you could have stuff built up here already, ready for the next war. I guess that kind of makes sense. But anyways, that is the warfare board. And those are the 4 boards that you're going to have in front of you, that you're going to be drawing and marking on, and so forth and so on. There are going to be these are these the objectives or the agendas? These are the objectives. So there are 4 different categories of objectives, and one for navigation, one for expansion, one for industry, one for warfare. So they match your 4 boards. And so, for instance, United Front, you're going to have to mark all 10 nodes in 2 rows. So, for instance, on the example here, they've marked all 10 nodes in this row and all 10 nodes in this row. The first player to gets 9 victory points. Everybody after that only gets 5. And basically, once somebody gets the 9, you flip that over to indicate that somebody's already got the 10 or the 9 victory points, the first place, and now everybody else just has the 5 victory points. So and you choose 4 of those, one for each card or sheet, for an objective for somebody to try to go for extra victory points. Then at the basically you're going to run through your whole event deck, and when you get to the event that is what is it called? It is the stage 5 event, A Throne for the Taking. It'll end the game. And then you're going to calculate your scores, and whoever has the most victory points at the end wins. The game, you also are going to have a faction. You're going to randomly, I think you're dealt 3 of these, and you get to choose one. So these are the many different factions that are in Twilight Imperium. They all have additional setup things that you're going to do at the start of the game, and then they each have a faction ability that you would have to unlock with a symbol on one of the boards and then spend it. And then you can activate their special ability and do what it says. Additionally, there are these reference cards, which basically go over what each of the icons means, and it's front and back. So that's very helpful because there is a lot of iconography in this game. But that is essentially Twilight Inscription, a overview of the rules, run through of kind of the different sheets and everything. It does look like after a couple plays, it'll probably be getting a lot quicker if everybody knows the game and how it works. It's going to be a lot of, writing on your boards. Obviously, trying not to smudge the boards, which is why I think you're supposed to lay these out in a grid, 2x2 grid in front of you. It looks like it's going to be fun. I think it will all be. I think if you're playing with the A sides, which are all asymmetric on the boards, there's not going to be as much of a concern about other players kind of seeing what everybody else is doing before making a decision. You're going to be able to determine what your active board is going to be. Like you're going to be able to determine which board they're marking, so you kind of have a general idea of what they're doing, but you're not going to know their strategy really. I mean, the only real issue I could see is if somebody just continually watches somebody else and notices, hey, they're building a bunch of stuff on their warfare board. Maybe I should do the same, but you're going to want to kind of spread yourself out on all your boards. You're not going to want to focus on one board and only do stuff on that. You're probably going to want to start with your navigation board and try to explore stuff and get some planets so that you can actually start doing stuff on the expansion board. Industry, you're going to be able to do right off the bat if you want to. And warfare, you're going to be able to do right off the bat if you want to. But your navigation, you're hindered until you explore a planet to doing anything on the planets. You can still build space docks, but you can't really explore planets until you've claimed them on your navigation board. The dice are nice and huge. I really like that. But anyways, that is Twilight Imperium Inscription. Quick rules overview. Well, and by quick, I mean like 45 minutes. I'm getting ready to do a solo game of this, and I'll probably have that video up shortly after this one goes up. Thanks for watching.